A very special hello to all my listeners, subscribers, disciples, and students. This is your Master GongSun, and welcome to another episode of Taoism as Applied to the News, where I read a news article and then I give you my own personal take on it and what the Tao says. In today's article, we talk about Islamophobic incidents in Australia. Apparently, they have doubled over the past 2 years. Islamophobic incidents, including physical attacks, verbal harassment, people being spat on, and rape threats, have more than doubled in the past 2 years, with girls and women bearing the brunt of hate, or rather hatred, towards Muslims in Australia. The majority of victims are Muslim women, and the majority of perpetrators are male. It's very obvious and really concerning. Children were present in a number of cases and were witness to their mothers being choked, bashed, punched, or called some awful names. One mother was allegedly set upon while sitting at a food court in a shopping center with her 5 children. An unknown lady yelled out, "F Muslims," and punched me in the head, knocking me out in front of my kids. I was admitted to the hospital where a CT scan showed my nose was broken. Well, that's horrible, of course, especially when it's unprovoked. That's physical assault. Me and my kids are seeing a psychologist for the trauma. We don't leave the house unless it's necessary, as we have a fear that it will happen again. So she has PTSD now. Another woman recounted, when walking to get into train station, a man said to me, "I'll rip that scarf off your head and smash your head, and are you?" In one incident, a man entered a mosque and desecrated it with feces. Almost half of the in-person incidents were in New South Wales, home to Australia's largest Muslim population. Okay. Well, as you know, I won't read the whole thing because you can read it yourself. I always give the link to the headline, in the comment section below, the link to the news article. Okay, here's my take and the Tao's take, and they're very similar. My take is that when you move to someone's country, you have to adjust to a new language, a new culture, new customs, and pretty much new everything. So if you imagine a country as a house, you're actually a house guest in someone's house. And even if you get a passport, they'll still never consider you like a full local, because maybe by ethnicity or by physical appearance, you're obviously not from there. And I would know because I'm a child of immigrants. It wasn't easy being someone of Eastern descent and growing up in the West, because sometimes Eastern and Western cultures clash. They're almost opposites. In fact, they're complete opposites. Scratch the almost. And there were times when it was really difficult. I mean, for example, I use this example a lot, but for instance, in Indian culture, there's something called honor killings, where you have a right to kill your daughter, or it's customary rather. I don't know if it's a right, but it's customary to kill your daughter if she dishonors her family. Right? So, but this is not the case in the West. So there have been incidences in which Indian fathers have have murdered their daughters when they have eloped with someone that the fathers did not approve of. This might be customary in India, but in the West, that's illegal. You cannot marry. I don't know why I keep saying marry. You cannot murder your daughter for any reason, right? It's illegal. So we have culture clashes. So in many ways, I wish we had just stayed in Asia, where I'm from. I mean, immigration is not easy. It's a perceived value, I guess, for those wanting to leave, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. In Mandarin, we have a saying, 外国的月亮圆一点, and it means the moon is rounder in other countries. But so in English, we say the grass is always greener. And this is true. I mean, I probably would not have been fluent in English if I had not immigrated, but I would have compensated for that in other ways. I don't know, maybe I would have been more well adjusted or made more friends, right? But I guess we don't know. I guess we will never know unless we can peer into an alternate universe where my parents chose to stay and not immigrate. But my point is this, essentially, sure, you go for a perceived better life, but what is this better life? Is it just to consume more things, make a bit more money? Is it worth having your descendants not being able to speak your ancestral language? Is it worth them not understanding your ancestral culture? Because that's the case of most hyphenated North Americans, those who are not of British descent, right? They end up absorbing someone else's culture. So, and the Taoists would say something similar, like from my reading of all Taoist scriptures. I mean, if you have things that are not similar, if you have culture clashes, I mean, you see here the article mentions Australians, right? Like they see a Muslim woman in her headscarf, I believe it's called a jihab, right? It's very different from what Australians are used to seeing, right? Australian women do not wear that. So that might incite curiosity in like a more kind-hearted and good-natured person, and it just might incite hatred and fear from those who are more suspicious and cynical. So this is an example of a culture clash. So the Tao would say, isn't it easier? Like, why not do what's natural? Isn't it more natural to stay in your own country where you have people who are of the same background, ethnicity, culture, language, religion, right? This way you won't have to explain why you have on a jihab, right? You would avoid social awkwardness. So me as a person, I'm against immigration in general, with very few exceptions. There's nothing wrong with visiting people in other countries, in their own homes, right? But I wouldn't stay there. I mean, I loved to visit my friend Mr. O, for example, but I would never want to live in his house with him permanently. I mean, he and I are almost polar opposites. We would drive each other crazy. My point is this. If you immigrate, I believe the best way to be in alignment with the Tao is to assimilate completely. Get rid of your religion, get rid of the jihad, get rid of everything. Adopt a local sounding name and try to be like the locals. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. I don't believe in multiculturalism. Like, it just doesn't work. We have clashing values, and because culture is just another way of saying values, and when you are doing the opposite of what your host country does, that's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for conflict. So the Tao would say that it's better not to immigrate, stay in your own country, and find a way to be successful there, because the grass is indeed always greener. All right, this has been your Master GongSun. What do you guys think? Pro-immigration, pro-multiculturalism, or not? I am anti-both. Leave your comments below. As usual, keep following the Tao.